I'm Betty. I'm the oldest of the Bosman family. I was born in 1944.
My name is Bob. I am the oldest male Bosman still alive in the family. I was born in September 23rd, 1945.
Hi, I'm Jim. October 10th, 1947, I became third in line of the many progeny of Alice and Elmer. Clearly, Mom and Dad were just not real happy with Bob. Surely they wanted somebody with a much better looking nose.
My name is Roger. I am the fifth member of the Bosman clan, born into this world on March 25th, 1952.
Okay, I'm Jean, and I became a Bosman on January 12th, 1954, middle of the winter, and I'm now 54.
Hi, this is Tom. I am child number 7. Born July 1st, 1957. So if everybody knows, the last day of this reunion is my birthday. So that are leaving on Saturday, make sure that you give me my present then, because my birthday is on Sunday. And also, I'm the best looking of the brothers. So.
Hi, I'm Ellie, and when I married Jim in 1969, I joined the best family ever.
Hi, I'm Gordon. I've been hanging out with Betty since 1967.
Hi, I'm Mark, son of Gordon and Betty.
My name is Bethany. I was born in 1975.
Hi, it's Christy. I am the daughter of Roger, born in 1976, and granddaughter to Elmer and Alice.
Hi everybody. On August 20th, 1976, this family was given the greatest gift of all. This guy. Breck the Robert. And just in case there was any question, I'm Grandma's favorite.
Tom Moore here, down in Paradise on St. Croix, where I just bought a home. Jean and I got married July 24th, 1977, Elmer's birthday. Family accepted me. Memories for 20.
Hey, it's Patrick, 1979.
This is Brian, son of Bob, born in 1981 in Albany, New York. I like sailing and I hate mayonnaise.
Buddy, I'm Kelly. I'm married to Tom Bosman, kid number 7. Mom to Jesse and Kyle, and grandmom to Molly and Will, mother-in-law to Mike Brealey. I was born in November 6, 1959 as a Pulaski. And 20 years later, I met a cook where I was a waitress and I fell in love. A couple years after that, got married. It's been what, Tom? 37 years ago?
I'm Lauren Bryn Stark, and I was born April 17th, 1983, granddaughter to Alice and Elmer, and daughter to Jean and Tom.
Hi, I'm Jessie. I'm Elmer and Alice's grandchild, and the first and favorite child of Tom and Kelly.
All right, here we go. I'm Carrie. My dad is Bob, and I'm 32, was born in 1985.
I'm Kyle Bosman. I am the second child of Tom and Kelly Bosman, and I joined this family on January 23rd, 1986.
Say something unique, Mother.
Unique!
Is
Zoom up close to the pretty face. The body.
Ugly.
Oh my goodness.
Motley Crue. Motley Crue. Motley Crue. Do I have any requests for Motley Crue? You got it.
Huh? Yeah, I told her that, but she don't listen to me. Just like always. Tom, what's going on here? She's draining. What are you doing? What are you doing? Huh? Oh, now you want to come back in? Look at that, will you?
Yeah. Walking on water.
Let me try. Michael, me. No way.
I gotta go this way.
Now everybody do it. Everybody has to do it.
Yeah, everybody's got doing it.
Ellie? I know you use that excuse to get back in the pool now. Get out.
All right. Just so Dad won't look like a fool. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Grandpa. Happy birthday to you.
One more time.
Grandpa has a first name. It's E-L-M-E-R. My grandpa has a second name. We love to see him every day, but he lives so far away. Grandpa, we're glad you're here today to celebrate your birthday.
Which way? Bring her back. Nice one. When you turn around, move your lips so that we can read it all. Okay. Happy birthday to someone who has reached that stage of maturity when it's time to look life squarely in the eye and say, all right. Now turn around.
No, you're
Get out. Try that. I'm going to say it. Okay.
Sometimes you like to just sit around and not lift your fingers, not get excited about things, just sort of
Take it easy.
take it easy and relax. For those days when you don't feel like talking, we have to use a special cassette recorder. And on this tape are special old-time favorites, such as "Don't Slam the Door," "You Dunderhead," yeah. Pipe down or I'm coming up there.
Okay, just don't give him the Harry.
No, that's right. No. Turn around when you do that. Or,
No, this one.
Or, and as a special treat, commemorating that one night when we're all out camping and we rolled into the campground, usually around 10 p.m. at night. Everything was dead quiet, including the car. My father, for the first time in his life, and the only time, said, "Damn it!" Not true.
I have a story about that.
And the finale of the tape, his beloved wife saying,
Hi, I'm Mary, and I married Roger in August of 1994, and we're living happily ever after, ever since.
Hi, I'm Ryan, and I joined the Bosman clan in August of '94 when Roger and Mary got joined together.
I'm Tori. I was the first great-grandkid, and I was born in 1997.
Hey, I am Kyle Balsis, married Bethany November 27th of 1999, and since then, the rest of it has been, what? Hold on, I'm doing a video, hold on. All right, hold on, butt wiping, hold on. All right, sorry, I'm back. Father of 5, Cam, Weston, Peyton, Addison, and Mason, and 2 dogs. Speaking of the dogs, zip it! Who let the dogs out? Sing with me. Who? So really, as you can tell, I mean, ever since we got married in 99, it's been pretty much like paradise. You know, our own little paradise, that is, but wouldn't change an absolute thing.
I'm Stephanie. I became part of the family in 2000 when I married Brett.
My name is Ethan. I am a great-grandchild, and I was born in 2001.
I'm Kara. I'm a great-grandkid, and I was born in 2003.
My name is Mason, and I was born in 2004.
I'm Jerry Bosman. I am married to Robert Bosman, the elder son. We met in 1998 and we got married in 2004. I have then acquired 2 great stepchildren, Brian and Carrie, and I have 2 children of my own. I have Robin, who's married to Evan Dobus, and they have 3 children, Charlie May, Quinn, and Owen. And then I have a son, Todd Smith, and he's married to Laura, and they have 2 children, Ivy and Connor. And then I have, of course, our new little grandson, Carter Aaron, which is Carrie's new baby, Carrie and Charlie's. So I have 6 grandchildren altogether. I'm a retired nurse, live in Del Mar, New York, and I am 70 years old, and I guess that sums it up. So, there. And very happy to be in this family, and I just love you guys so much. You're awesome.
My name is Chris. I came into the family because of Bryn. I'd known her since middle school. Well, she knew me better. She had a crush on me and she was chasing me all around, but I didn't know because I was an oblivious boy from middle school. But I got married to Bryn in 2005 after we graduated from college.
My name is Peyton.
And when were you born?
Born is 2006.
Yes. What is your name?
I'm Addie.
What's your nickname?
Nika.
What year were you born?
276.
And where are you from?
Washington.
Hi, I'm Casey. I married the beautiful Christy Bosman, who is now Christy Jones, and we met in 2006, Labor Day weekend, and it's been almost 12 years of bliss ever since.
My name is Carrie, and I joined the family when I married Patrick in 2009.
Hey everyone, this is Mike Burley. On October 3rd, 2009, Jessie made the best decision of her life. It took my hand in marriage.
Hi, my name's Olivia. I was born on February 15th, 2010, and my mom and dad are Casey and Christy Jones. Hi, my name is Kayla Moore. I joined the Bosman family when I was born in 2010, and that's when I was born.
My name is Raspberry Mary Stark. I was born in 2011, April 16th, and I'm great-granddaughter to Alex and Eleanor.
Hi, my name is Molly Brearley. I was born in, my birthday is June 5th, and I was born in 2011.
Hi, my name is Maya, and my birthday is in July 2nd, and my mom and dad are Christy and Casey Jones.
My name is Camden, and I was born in 2013. My name is Watson, and I was born in 2013.
My family's out. I'm born from 2018.
13.
13.
And who's your great grandfather?
Named after Elmer.
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 And Alice is your great grandmother.
Yep.
Repeat after me. Hi, my name is Will Brearley.
Hi, my name is Will Brearley.
And I was born February 9th
And I was born February 9th
in 2014.
in 2014.
Hi, I'm Charlie, and I married Carrie in 2015. That's how I became part of the Bosman clan.
This is Carter. He's my baby boy. He was born in September last year. Yeah. So he's almost 9 months old.
Hi there. I wanted to give you some impressions of my mother and father, Alice and Elmer, when we were growing up. We had in my opinion, a wonderful childhood. It was sort of like a Ozzie and Harriet experience. Back in the 50s and the 60s, it was a wonderful time to be a child in the Bosman family. My mother and father loved each other very much. My father played the traditional role of working, and my mother played the traditional role of being a stay-at-home mom. I was the second child, and I think that's probably the best position to be in. No offense, Betty. They were sort of getting a hold of how to be parents, and everything seemed to be just great. They loved each other very much. Some of the memories that I have of our family, Christmases were always fun. One of the things I remember is that Dad always bought Mom a negligee at Christmas time. And she always paraded around in it for us and modeled it, which was quite an experience. Vacations were always great. We spent a lot of time going to Michigan while my father's mother was still alive. We would pack 9 people into the big station wagon, hook up the plywood box that Huey Scoffner made for Dad, Stewie Scoffner made for Dad, and we would travel to Michigan every year in the summer for 2-week vacation. One particular time I remember was when we were headed for Michigan and we were camping overnight in Canada, and we pulled into this campsite late at night. It was very dark, and it was pouring. And so we were pulling into the driveway of the campground, and all of a sudden the car died. No lights, no engine, nothing. And my father sat there, and everybody was silent, and all of a sudden he hits the steering wheel and says, "Damn it!" And we were all stunned. We had never heard my father swear before. Now, I'm sure he's sworn after that, but at that time we had never heard this. And my mother, and this is a perfect example of how the two of them related, she just sat in the front seat and started giggling, which sort of broke the ice and made the terrible situation we're in a little tolerable. We would always go to Michigan for a vacation. The first thing we would do is run across the street from the cottage that we rented and pick blackberries and bring them to my mother, and she would make the most fabulous blackberry pie. That's what I remember most about my mother on vacations. And my father, on vacations, I remember his famous line, time and time again, "Don't slam the door." My parents, like I said, loved each other very much. They were always there for us children, whether it be sporting events or public speaking that I was involved in. They loved each other right up to the end, and I miss them.
Favorite memories of Mom and Dad. Of course, my favorite memory is getting my horse when I was just 13, Christmas, and or was I 12? I was almost 13, I think. And that was my favorite memory. And I'm sure that it was the favorite memory of all of my brothers, Bob, Jim, Don, Roger, and Tom. And my sister, she was already out of the house, but I think that was a favorite memory of her too. My other favorite memory is going camping to the lake in Michigan and that kind of thing. I always liked camping. I always liked being outside, except when there's bugs like today. And let me see, what else? Another favorite memory I have is when Mom and I broke all the plates in the kitchen because we were mad because there were people in the world being abused and starved. And I came home from school crying about it. And so she wanted me to vent. So we broke dishes.
Hi everyone, I'm Betty, I'm the oldest in the family, so some people call me a matriarch, some people just call me old. But I wanted to tell you a little bit about my mom and dad. And to some of you, that's your grandpa. Some of it, to you, it's your great-grandpa. And some of you don't know who they are. So I'm going to tell you a couple of stories about each one of them so that you can get to know them a little bit better and to know who your family is. Now, my mom, one of the earliest things I remember about my mom, well, it's not maybe the earliest, but we were still living in Long Island, and I was probably 6 years old. And my mother was a nurse, and I was always very interested in all of her books. And I got out one of her books one day and gathered all of the people in the neighborhood, the little kids who were, most of them are younger than me or maybe just about my age. And we sat on the front stoop and I went through her book about how to have babies. And I proceeded to tell everybody and show them all the photos in the book about how to have babies. Now, they all went home and told their parents, and they were all excited because now they knew how babies were born. And my mother got a lot of phone calls about what I did, but she was not mad at me, and she just sat me down and showed me even more and tried to calm down all the parents. She was always very good at that. When we lived in Endwell, and I think I was about 10 or so, it was Easter, and my mom would hide Easter eggs all over the house. She put them in your drawer, she put them in your clothes, and she just had them all over the place because it would be too cold to have Easter eggs outside. And one day, it was late in the night, and she was asking me to help her, and she goes, "Oh, the heck with this." And so she just took the big bags of Easter eggs, and they were marshmallow Easter eggs, so they were big, and she just threw them all over the floor. And she says, "There, we're done." So sometimes my mom had crazy ways of doing things. When I was a teenager and I was going to go to a prom with my boyfriend, it was time for me to get a prom dress. And so my mom was all excited about going shopping with me. And she found me this most beautiful prom dress. Now, this would be back in 1959, 1960. And so she would let me try it on, and I tried it on. It looked beautiful. And she said, "Okay, we're going to get this one." And I said, "But Mom, it's $100 now. This is back in 1960. And $100 is a lot of money." She said, "I don't care. It's your prom. You're going to get this dress." So she bought it for me. Now, my dad was not happy that she spent $100 on my, and he said, "What does she need a prom dress for that amount of money?" Blah, blah, blah. And he was going on and on and on. And but she said, "Nope, she has to be the most beautiful person at the prom." And I felt really good because I had a beautiful prom dress. So my mom was good at knowing what was the important things, at least to me at that time. The other thing that my mother was overweight. And so when she would take my children, Mark and Breck, swimming at the pool when they lived in Florida, she would say, "I have a special skill." And she said, "I can float, and I can float way above the water, and no one else can do this." And the boys would just be amazed that she could float because they would sink. Well, what she didn't really tell them is because she had a lot of extra fat on her that kept her buoyant. But the kids just used to love the fact that she could float way above the water, so she loved telling them that. She also liked to do with her grandchildren. I never would let my children eat sugared cereal. So when they would go to visit her, the first thing they would do is go to the grocery store, and each of the boys were allowed to buy a box of cereal that they wanted. And they bought sugared cereal. And they would eat the whole box in one day. And my mother said, well, it doesn't make any difference. They just come and see me once in a while and they can have sugared cereal. So I do understand that now, being a grandmother myself.
My favorite memory I have lots of favorite memories of Mom, but probably one of my favorites is when I would get home from school and we would have tea. But one of my favorite moments is when Dad told the silly joke about Ithaca and the coffin coming down the hill and going through the pharmacy, the casket opening up and said, you got anything to stop my coffin? And Mom took her glass of milk and threw it on Dad. That was one of the funniest things I ever saw. Favorite for Dad, of course, I have lots of those too. But I think it was my 12th birthday that he says, come on, we got to go to Hannafin's. I'm like, all right. So we get in the car. On the way to the car, he explains to me that I'm going to get a motorcycle for my birthday. That he's going to pay for half, and I'm going to pay for half. Well, I said, I don't have any money to pay for half. He goes, oh, you're going to work it off. Well, let me tell you, I worked that off for a long, long time. Those are my favorites. Some of my favorites.
I have so many memories of Grandpa, but I think a couple of my favorites are that he would eat an apple down to the core, so there's barely anything left, and it was always so funny. He would always give us a hard time if we didn't follow suit and eat that apple. We were so wasteful. And the other one that is probably my favorite memory is when we would Skype. I was in college and he would Skype with me and we would talk forever, and he was my like little counselor and would always talk me through things, and I was always so grateful of that, and I miss him so much.
When I think about Mom and Dad and what it was that they were so important about, was that they taught us that it's okay to be unconventional. I mean, how many mothers would jump in the lake fully clothed and then come out and sit on your lap? Crazy. And Dad, walking around with those tall white socks and his sandals, his plaid shorts. Oh my God, talk about unconventional. One
of the things that always stands out to me the most is that when Christy and I would go visit Grandma and Grandpa in Lakeland, Grandma would always take us to the grocery store right when we got there to get us our food. We would have to get 2% milk because we hated skim milk at the time, and we would always have to get white bread and just different things. And I remember one time that we were allowed to take the Mustang, and I remember hoping we weren't gonna die on the way to the grocery store. And I'm not sure Grandma really could like park the Mustang very well. And I just remember that being super funny. And then one time when we got back to the house from the grocery store, I remember that Grandpa wasn't there, and there was a note on the counter from him saying that he had gone to get his hair removed. And I always just remember thinking as a kid, like, how silly that was. So those are just like a couple things that are always fond memories of mine and things that I always think of when I think of Grandma and Grandpa.
One of my favorite memories about Grandma was a time that we were cooking chocolate chip cookies, and I was helping her out, and I must have been like 10 or 11 years old, and she told me to put in a teaspoon of baking soda, and I did a tablespoon of baking soda, and they turned out horrible.
My favorite memory of Grandma and Grandpa is definitely driving their golf cart around. It's a lifelong love of golf carts, inspired in Florida.
Hello everyone. I have been asked to relay a favorite memory. I think it was probably back in the 1960s when Dad used to pile everyone into the car, and we'd hook up this big old plywood wooden camper, and we'd go cross country to Michigan. Now, instead of trying to explain to everyone what that was like, I thought I would show you. So here you go.
Hello, Bosmans. I guess I'm hanging out in my office today, thinking of some of the fondest memories of Grandma and Grandpa. The list is kind of long. I can remember being 16 and Grandpa allowed me to take the Mustang to school. I went to a school where we had an auto body shop, and that was one of my classes. We really didn't get anything done on the car, but I'll never forget riding from Lakeland to our house with Grandpa. It was just a lot of fun, I guess. Good conversation. Really don't even remember what it was about. Grandma, well, I have a very, very fond memory of being at the lake, actually in the lake with Mark. We were having some form of a mud fight, shoving it in each other's hair, ears, down the swimming suit, anywhere we could probably get a handful of mud. Grandma came out about halfway through the mud fight and wasn't having it. Snatched us out of the lake, threw us into the bathtub, and I can remember the words come out of her mouth say, "You got dirt all in your crack." I guess at the time, I just had never heard "dirt in your crack" come out of my grandmother's mouth, but to this day, it's probably one of the funniest moments of my life. I think Mark and I laughed a little too hard. She might have gotten upset with us.
I love my family.
Some of the things that I remember about my dad, when I was very young, he had a photography studio, and he would take pictures of us. Every weekend we had to have our picture taken. But he had his own place where he would develop his film. And it was a little black, little room, a dark room. It's called a dark room, where he would develop his film. And he always would ask me to come in with him, and I would watch him develop film. Of course, you couldn't leave until it was all done. But I remember going in there with him and really enjoying spending that time with him, because my dad was a very busy man because he was an engineer, and he always had worked very hard. And sometimes when we lived in New York, in Endwell, he would come home really late from work, and he would be very tired, and he hadn't eaten anything. And my mom would fix him a steak and a Pepsi. And he would have both of those things, and I could smell the steak, and it just smelled delicious because we didn't have steak very often. And I would go downstairs, it could be 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, and he would give me a little piece of steak, and he would give me the bone from the steak so I could chew on it, because I rarely had steak. And then he would give me a little glass of Pepsi, and it was kind of our special time together. And so that was kind of a fun thing to remember about my dad when I was young. He was always fixing things. And when we lived in Long Island, he had a scooter, and he worked and worked and worked on the scooter. And I can remember him taking us for rides around the neighborhood on his scooter. But it would last about 5 minutes, and then he'd have to take it in and fix it again because it didn't work. But he loved that scooter. My mother didn't like it very much, but he he liked it. When I was a teenager, I was really annoyed at my dad. He was really busy, and he didn't like my boyfriend, and so he was always kind of angry at me, or at least I felt that way because, being a teenager, you feel like that a lot. And so I decided I was not going to speak to him anymore. So for 2 years, I did not speak to him. And guess what? He never even noticed that I didn't speak to him. And so probably a couple of years before he died, I said to him, do you remember when I was a teenager? And he said, well, yeah. And I said, did you know that I didn't speak to you for 2 years? And he says, no. And I said, yep, didn't speak to you for 2 years because I was mad at you. And he just laughed and laughed. But I hadn't told him about it until, 50 years later did I tell him about the fact that he, that I ignored him and wouldn't speak to him for 2 years. But as he got older, our relationship improved tremendously, and he used to call me every day to see how I was doing and how my work was going. And so for years after my mom died, he would call me every day, and I would come over and help him out. And he just used to love to have people bring him food, and he just loved having people around. And it was really good for him to have both Roger and I there to help him out as he aged and was having more and more problems. But he was one of the best things that I remember. He used to treat us, Jean and I, differently because we were girls, and I just don't think he knew how to relate to us. But as he aged, he kind of treated me like one of the boys, so I knew I had kind of found a soft spot in his heart for me, because he always had a soft spot. I always had a soft spot in my heart for him. And we miss both my parents dearly. I think about them all the time. But just remember that you have a wonderful family, and we're so happy that you came to the reunion to keep family in mind, because it is really an important thing in your life.
I did see this video of Alice floating around the water, God, I don't know, 1,000,000 times, of her doing this floating trick. That is absolutely amazing. So I think that's probably one of the memories that stick in my mind with her.
Favorite memory of Grandma was that she would sit me down at the piano or the organ in Florida and tell me that I have beautiful long fingers and I'm not going to waste them, and I need to learn how to play the piano. And she would sit there and teach me how to play. And the other favorite memory I have is where she would share her arts with me, because I love to paint, and she would share that with me, and we would talk about happy trees. We'd watch Bob Ross together, and she would teach me how to paint with her oils.
Once when I was home alone with your mom, there was a knock at the door. And when she answered it, there were 2 Jehovah's Witnesses carrying their literature, and I thought she would just dismiss them immediately. But no, she invited them inside, and she looked at their literature, and she asked them to sit down. And she listened very quietly to what they had to say, and then she told them that she appreciated their time, and she walked them back to the door. I was in shock. When she came back to the living room, she said to me, you know, Ellie, I don't think anyone ever invites those guys to come in and tell their story. So I have done that for them. I was absolutely stunned at her graciousness. The end.
I'm a Bosman.
All right, Grandpa.
Yeah.
So, tell us your name.
Elmer H. Bosman, B-O-S-M-A-N.
And how old are you today?
90.
And what is today's date?
And today is 2007, first day of the year.
All right. And what was your birth date?
July 24th, 1916.
And where were you born?
In Holland, Michigan.
Holland, Michigan.
Yeah.
And what were the names of your parents?
Main names?
Sure.
My mother's name was Gertrude Marcelia. And my father's name was Aaron Bosman, B-O-S-M-A-N. He didn't have a middle name.
He didn't?
No.
And what's your earliest childhood memory that you can remember?
Oh boy.
Did you have a favorite toy when you were a little kid?
Not that I recall. I moved when I was about 5 years old from the house on Lincoln Avenue that my father built, and we moved from there to 97 West 14th Street. And when we moved, I got scarlet fever, so I had to be quarantined.
How old were you?
About 5. And my brothers and sister couldn't come to move to the house too because of the quarantine. So they used to come and visit, and I'd have to look at them through the window. And that was about 6 weeks, I guess it was.
How long? 6 weeks?
Probably about that much. I don't remember exactly. But,
Bet you were miserable.
oh yeah. That's what caused my eyes to deteriorate with the scarlet fever.
What were the symptoms of scarlet fever? Do you remember?
Oh, you just hot, sweaty, and just sick all over.
How many brothers and sisters did you have?
I had one sister and 2 brothers.
And what were their names and ages?
My oldest brother's name was Ivan, and Ivan Alonso, and Nelson William is the next one, and my sister's name was Helen Jane.
Helen Jane. And so, how old was Helen? Older than you?
Oh, they were all older than I am, yeah.
Okay. So, what do you remember most about your brothers and sisters? Let's start with Nelson.
Oh, I don't know exactly. I remember one incident where we lived in on Lincoln Avenue, where my father built the house. There was a creek that ran in the back of the yard, back of the property, and we used to play there. And my brothers thought that the creek was not small enough for me to jump over, so they decided they'd pick me up and throw me across. Evidently, I didn't get across.
How old were you when that happened?
Oh, maybe 3, 4, I don't know, 4 o'clock, probably 4 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my sister, she was a singer. She liked to sing, and she took a lot of music lessons and so on. And then she went to Michigan State and took music there. That's where she met her husband, Pete Peterson. And From there they moved several times. And then they ended up in Raleigh, North Carolina. And my son, Pete, my son-in-law, was what do you call it? He was in the graduate school. He was the, what do you call it, guy that heads the graduate school?
Dean?
Dean of the graduate school, yeah. And they lived there for several years. You know, my sister and brothers are all dead.
Mm-hmm.
My sister died the day that her husband retired from North Carolina State. That's where he was in school, where he was teaching, or was dean.
How did she die?
She had cancer.
Uh-huh.
And she had an enlarged heart. And she was the first one to die.
What year was that?
Oh, I can't remember the year, but she was 65, I think. She was the same age as her husband. And then my brother Ivan died from a heart attack. And my brother Nelson also died from a heart attack. Ivan died here in Florida. He had a house over here on Forest Lake Drive in their park for a couple of years before he died. He used to come down in the winter time, and in the summertime they had cottages up on Lake Michigan near Holland.
Uh-huh.
So, and that's about it, I guess. I can't remember too much more.
Well, let's talk about your mom and dad.
Okay.
What do you remember about your mother?
Oh, she was a nice lady.
What was her name again?
Gertrude.
Gertrude.
Gertruida, it was her Dutch name. She was born in Holland. And
Holland, Michigan, or Holland, the Netherlands?
Holland, Michigan.
Okay.
And she was there for, well, her mother died when she was 40. Her name was Jane Keppel.
So that was your great-grandmother?
Yeah.
Do you remember her?
No, I never saw her, I don't think. Because she was very young when she died. And I don't know what she died from, but it was a lot of diseases in that time.
Uh-huh.
And that my father was a hand wood turner. He worked for the Holland Furniture Company, and he used to make the sample furniture, like any part that was turned,
mm-hmm.
and he would make the samples, and then if they got an orders for them, then they would set up an automatic machine to do the turning. And he retired when I was I guess, not too long after we moved to 97 West 14th Street. And
how long was he? Did he work at the wood company?
He worked there all of his life. He worked at Scott Luger's Lumber Company first, And then he worked at the Holland Furniture Company for the rest of his time there. And he was a good woodworker, and he had made several pieces. He made a bookcase that Bob has right now. And there's several other pieces that he made.
Are those the furniture that Mom and Dad have at their house?
Yeah, he made those samples, right?
Mm-hmm.
That bedroom furniture.
Yeah, those are nice.
Yeah.
What year would he have made that furniture, do you think?
Oh, let's see, I don't know. Probably in the 20s or 30s, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
They used to get a good price on their samples.
Yeah. Was his family, where was his family from?
His family was from the Netherlands.
So both your mother and father were from the Netherlands?
No.
My
mother was born in Holland, Michigan.
But I mean, where was her relatives?
Oh, her father came from the Netherlands.
Okay.
And my father came from the Netherlands. He had an Uncle William, who lived in Grand Rapids. And Uncle Doris, he lived in Grand Rapids. And Aunt Lena lived on a farm outside of Zeeland, Michigan. And she lived with her sister and her husband on that farm. Aunt Lena was her name. And then there was an Uncle Henry that was I never knew. He died before I was born, I guess. I think he was in the Army out west someplace. But I haven't been able to track him where he is or who he was. His name was Henry, so my middle name is the name for him.
Mm-hmm.
And Aunt Lena and Alice were both on that farm, and they had one son named John. And he ran the farm after they died, and he finally gave it up and became an electrician. Let's see, my mother's father, he was a banker in Holland, Michigan, and he was the one that had the electric car, and he was quite a gentleman, and my mother had two sisters and a son and a brother. Her brother's name was Tom Marcinia, and her sister's name was Susan, and Maud, Aunt Maud. They all lived in Holland, Michigan, and I never saw my grandfather. And I remember vaguely my grandfather on my mother's side. Of course, I never saw her mother.
Right.
So she was the Keppel family was quite a family from Holland. They were there originally, I guess.
Did you hear a lot of Dutch being spoke when you were growing up?
Oh yeah, my father spoke Dutch most of the time at home.
Really?
Yeah.
So you know Dutch? You could speak?
Some of it. I could understand better, but I couldn't talk very much. But he didn't. He used to talk once in a while in Dutch, but not very often.
What did he ever call you a name in Dutch? What did he?
No.
No?
No. Not that I remember.
Was he a... Did you spend time together often with him?
Oh, yeah.
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 What did you guys like to do together?
Oh, like I told you in that little thing I wrote about my father, that he used to come home for lunch, and I would walk partway back to the work where he worked, and he would always give me a nickel for a candy bar. So, but then then he died from, he had a problem with his eye. His eye was had a bad cataract on it, and they took him to Grand Rapids to operate on him. And at that time, the patient had to lay perfectly still. They had their heads all sandbagged so they couldn't move after the operation.
Uh-huh.
But then he started to vomit or something, and then evidently the strain, all the fluids ran out of his eye. So he was blind in that eye. And then he had to have an artificial eye, and it didn't work out very good for him because he couldn't see, and then his other eye was cataract on it also. But he never got to operate on the second one before he died. He died in 1939, and he died in Grand Rapids in the hospital there.
What kind of... was he a Republican or a Democrat?
I don't know.
You don't know?
No, we didn't pay much attention to politics at the time.
No. No world affairs didn't...
No.
Weren't discussed?
No.
What, do you remember any good childhood friends that you had?
Oh, yeah, a lot of them.
Who was your best friend when you were a kid?
Oh, John Henry Hyma. He lived up on the next street, up on Pine Avenue there. And then his cousin lived across the street as George Hyma. And then Gladys Scrotengore, he lived right across the street from me. And Stewie Scoffner, he lived down the block a ways. And Chuck Steggedy, he was down the block a ways. And let's see. Another good friend was Roger Van Lente. He moved here to Florida, and he lived down about 10 miles out on 98. And I didn't know he was even here, but he just died there about a month or two ago. And he was 89 when he died. But all my friends that I had, good friends when I was younger, they've all gone. They're all dead.
Sounds like you guys had quite a crew, though, when you were growing up.
Oh, yeah.
You guys, what were some of your adventures as a group? Do you remember?
Oh, yeah. When I was in high school, I had a 1916 Maxwell touring car that my friend John Henry Hyma's grandfather had gave it to me because it didn't need it anymore. And he had two of them. He had one of them that we used for parts, and the other one we used to run around with. We didn't need a driver's license at that time. And we used to run around with that a little bit. And, once in a while we'd go out to the Ottawa beach. It would take just a gallon of gas to get there and back. And then we had to fix up something on the car all the time. And we put the cylinders were pretty well worn. It was a 4-cylinder car, and we used to take the cylinders out and cut real thin pieces of clock spring and corrugate them, make them bumpy, and put them behind the piston ring so it wouldn't, so it would be tight in the cylinder. And then sometimes when we had a tire that was bad, we'd take the rim off another old one and put it on the one that was pretty good yet. So we had a casing of a tire on there and then another tire. And that was quite an experience. But I had those for a long time, those tires, and while I was in high school. And that's the biggest thing we always did. Hank. So.
What high school did you go to?
Holland High School. It's just a block away from where I lived. We lived on 14th Street, and the high school was on 15th Street. And it's still there today, but it's not a high school anymore. I think they use it for office work, office school. And
So what did you do after high school?
After high school, I went to Hope College for 2 years. In 1936 and 37, well, 35 and 36, I guess. 2 years. I graduated from high school in 1935. And then from there I went to Chicago, to the Chicago Technical College, and take radio engineering. I was there for 3 years, I guess. And then I was drafted there in Chicago, in the Army. And I was in the Army for 9 months.
What was boot camp like? Do you remember?
Yeah. It was Camp Walters in Texas. It was a brand new camp, and they just built it, and the barracks were all brand new yet. And they still had stickers on the windows, and we had to clean up a lot of mess, and the grounds were all mud all the time. And then they told me when I was inducted, that I wanted to go into the Air Force for ground duty instead of the Army. And so they said, yeah, when you get to your permanent post, you apply for a discharge or a transfer, and that'll help it. So that never did happen. I got to from Camp Walters, I went to Georgia. Can't remember the name now anyway. And from there I went to San Jose, California, and camped there. We were in just tents there. And that's where I was when the war broke out. And they had my discharge all ready to go and everything, and I was waiting for it. And they had a motorcycle courier carrying it, and the motorcycle caught fire and burned up my discharge. So I had to start all over again.
When Pearl Harbor was bombed, what was the feeling on the base? What was it, just chaos, or how was it?
No, not chaos. It was organized, but we were right away, as soon as Pearl Harbor, we were transferred to San Diego at Scripps Hard Ranch, which is up on a high spot, as a fire watch, because they didn't know what was going on, whether there would be a fire in San Diego or not. But that's where we were.
A natural fire or an attack fire?
An attack fire.
Really?
They thought. Yeah, because they didn't know what was going on. And on the day before Christmas, I got my discharge. And I flew home from California on the TWA, and that was quite a deal then. I flew back to Chicago, and then I got a job in Chicago at a Allied radio store, and I worked there until I got a job in with Hazeltine Electronics in Little Neck, Long Island. So, in the meantime, I'd gotten married.
Yeah, how did you meet your wife? And tell us about, what's her name?
My wife's name was Alice Butler, and Edna Alice Butler, but she never used the word Edna. And we met at a dance at the Presbyterian Church on Michigan Avenue that they had for the students at the college. And Alice was in nurses training at Michael Reese Hospital at the time, so they would all come together, and then I met her on a, what do you call it, one of these dances where everybody gets in line.
Square dance?
No.
No.
Circuit line dance where everybody lines up and then you.
Random.
Yeah.
So it was just luck that you partnered up with Alice.
Right. And then that's how I met her.
And did you guys get along right off, or?
Oh yeah.
Yeah?
Very well. That was it.
And how long did you date her before you got married?
Oh, it must have been, well, I was dating her before I went to the Army, so I'd say probably 2 years. And then we got married in 1942.
How'd you ask her to marry you?
I just said, well, let's get married. And she said, sure. So we got married in Champaign, Illinois, in a church that Alice's parents went to. And from there we moved to Long Island as soon as we were married.
New York.
Yeah. To Flushing.
Flushing.
Yeah.
And how was that? Did you like it there?
Oh yeah, it was all right. We had just a one-bedroom apartment to start with on Franklin Avenue, and then we moved. We bought a house in Little Neck, Long Island, which is just a short ways, and that's where the company was that I worked for, the Hazeltine Electronics Company. I was hired in Chicago. They had an office in Chicago, and they told me I could go to work in Long Island. So that's where I went.
What did you do for Hazeltine?
Electronic work. They were doing a lot of military work, They made sonobuoys, which was a submarine detection system. It was a small air thing like that they would take up an airplane and drop them with a parachute, and then they would go down in the water and listen for submarines. That was a big thing, and then we did a lot of test equipment for military stuff in the Navy.
This was after World War II.
Yeah, well, during the war.
During the war.
Yeah. So, and we lived in there, and the house we had was up on a little hill. It was very far from where I worked. I could see the place where I worked from the house, and we did some modifying on that, made it bigger and so on, put a couple of bedrooms upstairs, and I remember one year, it was during the war yet, Uncle Will, my father's brother, came to visit us, and he brought me a whole big roll of copper screening. And I had some frameworks that came from my father's house on Lincoln Avenue, and I've been carrying that around all the time. And I had an open porch on that house, and we closed that in with a screen, so we had a screen porch. And we later closed it in for windows, but getting copper at that time of the year and during the war was just unheard of. But he was a hardware salesman, so he had access to it somehow.
Luxury, huh?
Huh?
It was a luxury.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And then we had we had a stoker on our furnace, which was burned peat coal, small kernels of corn, coal, and one day we lost the power, so we had bought a washing machine during the war, but we couldn't get one with a motor on it. We had to buy one with a gasoline motor. I had a motor, so we put the motor on this washing machine, and then we had the gasoline engine to spare. So we were without power for a couple of weeks one time in the winter time. So I had to hook up that stoker with the gas engine to make the stoker run so we could have heat. So that was quite a job. But it was unheard of to be able to buy any kind of an appliance that had an electric motor on it. Because everything was through the war.
Was Grandma Alice working as a nurse at this time?
No, she never worked. Well, she worked maybe a couple of weeks at the Flushing Hospital. And then we started having children. And Betty was the first one. And then Bob, and then Jim, and then Don, and Jean, and then Tom. But we had
Betty was born in Long Island.
Yeah. Betty and Bob and Jim and Don are all born in Long Island. And the rest of them were born up in Endwell, New York, where we moved to after the war.
What was Betty like as a child?
Oh, she was beautiful. She was the apple of our eyes. She was real nice. And of course, being the firstborn, we had her, took a lot of care for her. And And Bob came along.
What was Bob like?
Oh, he was good too. All the kids were good. We never had any problem with, as far as I can remember, that it amounted to anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you were preparing for your first child, what was that like?
Of course, we didn't know anything about it, what was going to do. Of course, Betty and Jean knew. Alice knew because she was a nurse, but I didn't know anything about it. And when Bob was born, he was born at the Flushing Hospital also. At that time, they always kept the patients about 5 days. That time, when it was time to go home, Bob was very jaundiced, and so we had him in the car, and we got halfway home. We went back to the hospital and said there's something wrong with the baby. So they kept him there for another day or so, and they said it's just jaundice. So yellow jaundice. That was at the time during the war. I had a new Mercury, a two-door sedan that I traded with a guy from England who was working at Hazeltine, who had a Lincoln Zephyr, and he wanted a new car so he could get around and move he wanted to go to California, I think. Anyway, I swapped him with some money to boot, I guess, and then, but the car didn't have any power at all. And it came time to get down the bottom of the hill. I have to put the car in reverse and back up the hill, back up my driveway so I could get up there. Otherwise, I couldn't get up there with them going forward. That was an old car. So that was an experience too.
What was your favorite car of all time?
Oh.
I know you've had a lot. Did you have a favorite?
Well, it mustn't be a convertible Volkswagen we had. That was my favorite. We had that for years.
Hello.
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 Hi, sir. I'm Justin from Harris Interactive. This is not a sales call, nor will it lead to a sales call. We're conducting a survey about a very important issue, healthcare, and I'm hoping that you or someone in your household will make the
That's how you handle it right there.
Huh?
That's how you handle those guys.
Yeah. Shut them off.